I went on 100 dates in just 70 days. And today we're going to talk about the surprising reactions from my dates.
And you'll also hear from me, Dream's girlfriend, Dr. Sarah.
Now, if you're wondering how I was able to even connect with so many authentic relationships, be sure to stay to the end and we're going to give you access to the exact conversational frameworks that we do to create the magic.
Some things happen exactly as you might think, and other things will shock you.
Okay, so you probably have a lot of questions, and I'm just wondering, like, what are the first and like what are the most present emotions now?
Honestly, he lights up. When you talk about your experiences, it lights you up. I see the passion that you have in connecting with people, and it's such a turn on for me. I love connecting with people. I love seeing that passion and that spark in the person that I'm talking with. And you get to do that 100 times in 70 days. Like, how fun is that?
So, I mean, people are wondering right now, how jealous are you though?
Okay, so jealousy is just emotion. Also, we have a video about that. And so yeah, maybe sure. Does it come up every now and then? Maybe. And it's not the present emotion. So like all sorts of things can ripple through and I feel a lot. And I guess with a polyamorous mindset also, that's just a thing to think about and it's a signpost, but it's not something that I guess causes me to want to go and...
You don't want to kill me then?
No.
What do you mean by signpost?
It's a reminder to think a little bit deeper. So if I'm having that emotion come up, just to reflect and notice that within myself and say, hey, what's going on?
You're having this emotion and you're like, okay, so what is this telling me?
What exactly?
Yourself
What do I need to speak about my authentic self? Like, where is this coming from? And then also to reflect in and check in with myself and take that time with myself to figure out what that emotion means for me. And is that something that I can recognize as my own work? Or is it something that relationally maybe that we just need to talk or check in?
I love that distinction actually, because you're distinguishing between the work that you need to do by yourself and also like sometimes there's stuff that you need to discuss with me. We need to talk about those things. And you're taking it back to the first connection and you're thinking about like which one of these things is it first before you even bring it to me though.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I have some questions for you. I think everyone wants to know, right? So who paid for all of this?
Right. That's actually a really important question. So whenever it comes to who pays on the date, and especially in things like in relationships like polyamory, and whenever you have multiple people and you're concerned about a lot of different people, and I mean, obviously do the math, going on 100 dates in 70 days, sometimes I'm going on multiple dates per day.
The budgets are still real.
Budgets are still real. We're still in a capitalist society for sure, Like that is a real thing. So it was really interesting because what it really came down to, I kind of put it in 3 categories. And one was like, it was the most clear cut, but also kind of the most difficult to deal with, I would say. At least emotionally and egoically, whenever the server would come around and then my date would be like, okay, if you can just bring us 2 checks, whenever that would happen, it'd be like, okay, well, that's definitely clear cut. We know what's going on. But then there was also like a lot of the times I wanted to pay, and maybe that just kind of speaks to like societal pressures and whatever. But that's kind of the where I was at, and I would notice it would kind of spark a little thing because there's that thing that creeps in. It's like, oh, well, if they're paying for their own, I'm not paying for them. So do they not like the date? You know what I mean? Because there are a lot of times there's that thing that it's like, if I'm paying for the date, then especially in monogamous and traditional relationships, so if I'm paying, well, then you kind of owe me something, right? So if you take that element out, then it's kind of like, okay, well, now I have to actually rely on how the date went and how I'm showing up to the place. So there's that level of authenticity and just realness and vulnerability, I would say, that comes in. The other time would be whenever, after a while, it was like, I would ask the question, right? Like, do you mind if I pay? Right? And then if they're good with that, then we do that. If not, then I mean, I can tell you this, and never once happened that I asked that and they were like, no. You know what I mean? They're like, actually, I'm gonna do it. If it got to the point where I asked, I would have a mixture of responses. Sometimes there'd be a few times where they absolutely expected it. Right? And it would just like, that's what would happen. And I'd be like, yeah, do you want, yeah, of course, or I would just grab it and they would, and just nothing would be more like, it'd be like, a relief. Like, oh, well, thank you for paying. Like that happened a lot. It was like, oh, thank you for that. Like I really appreciate that. I would say it was very, out of the 100 times, maybe once, like I'm trying to think, like maybe once did like I pay, nothing was said, there was no, you know what I mean? Like that rarely.
Right.
I can remember a couple of times whenever it happened and then it kind of came back and it was, oh, by the way, thank you for paying. You know, like that happened a couple of times. But I really feel like that was due to the fact that we were so engaged, we were so connected, they were so relishing in the fact that they were having this opportunity to be able to be seen and witnessed being authentic, that it sort of slipped their mind. You know, it was almost like they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in this amazing, I didn't think it was possible, you know, and here I am, and he paid, and it's just like, and then after a while they'd come to me, oh my, and also thank you, you know, there was that kind of thing. And then the third thing would be, it would be because, like I said, I always kind of offer the thing like, oh, like, can I? And then it would just be like, yeah, sure, yeah, you know, like that was kind of those are sort of like the end, and then like the sort of middle ways. It would just be like, yes, thank you very much, you know. I loved having those elements.
So I'm thinking about all of these dates, and you had to notice some trends, you know.
Yeah.
What were the things that consistently surprised your dates the most that they would talk about and tell you?
Great question. Yeah. So I would say that just looking back on the trends and seeing what were the things that more often than not were the most surprising things that my dates would have. And so it's just really interesting because they would just be, whenever we're able to connect and whenever I was listening to them and being genuine and genuinely interested in what they're saying and involved and engaged in the conversation, it was like I'm recognizing how low the bar is set by other men. Like that was the thing that surprised me the absolute most, was like, I'm just showing up being authentic. I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm just being confident in myself and being indifferent to outcome. And it was just like the world would just opened up, you know, available to me was just there. And I'm just like, man, I'm glad that I'm doing this consciously and not nefariously, and like trying to, because this could, like, I could like just deceive people in just like do anything that I wanted. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I really hope that we can help and instill this in other men so that they realize that that's not actually that's not even the most beneficial thing for them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like being deceptive and manipulative is not good for anybody, right? But I think that was the thing that surprised me the most, was that the bar was set so low, and that just by connecting in, just by being authentic, just by being engaged and engaging, it opened up the whole world to the people that I was on a date with.
So, but what are examples of that? Like, what are the reactions that you would hear that clued you in that the bar was set so low?
Yes. I can't tell you how many times that I heard, I've never felt so connected. I've never felt so listened to. I've never felt so present. I've never felt so seen. And it was really interesting because it was almost to a point where they would think that it was on the borderline of being deceptive, right? It was like they were almost like what are you, like, what's your angle here, like what's going on here, like what is happening right now, why are you listening to me so much, why are you actually paying attention to me? But I think that people can understand that, and they get past that because I am genuine. I actually am engaged. I actually do want to know about your life, and they can sense that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it gets past their defenses, and then they just go, right? They're like, oh, it's like crack to them, right? It's like you give them a little bit, and they're like, oh my God, so I can talk, and you're actually going to hear what I'm going to say. Okay, well then I have like 3 years of backlog and everything that I need to freaking say to you in this few hours of time frame, you know? And it would all just come pouring down. It was just like, whoa, you know? And I think that's also part of, I'm like, oh, I have to teach like share this with other men so that they realize like not to be so whack. I think that's the thing that really surprised me. That surprised my dates like the most.
For sure. I feel like I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
Thinking about going on different dates myself. And yeah, when the connection is there and we're in flow. I mean, it's flow. We're talking back and forth, and it just feels natural, and there's this warmth and energy to it, and
it's beautiful.
It fills you with energy, and you can tell, like it's just like you want to keep going and talking, and before you know it, it's been 3 hours, and you don't even realize it's been 3 hours.
You have no idea how many times that happens. It's just like you lose track of time. What is time, anyways? But yeah, sometimes we get, and it's just like. You're just like we're so engaged, and before you look at it, it's like, oh shoot, like I got stuff to do in the morning and stuff, So yeah, absolutely, that happened a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm like, so how many second dates came out of these 100?
That also goes into me having my boundaries and my parameters. I'm out here with precise and high level intentions. Right. And so if I find somebody that's not quite meeting me on that level, I do have to very much like separate. I don't have time for that right now. I have to. Yes, I realize that you just had this really amazing, beautiful experience. And but it's not and I'm glad to have provided that for you. And it's not the space that I have to be able to reciprocate, to be able to continue something else. Like I have to have my time for what I have it for. Like that's very important for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing your own capacity and being true to that.
Yes, absolutely. It's how much do I have to give? Because I mean, yes, I'm definitely having fun whenever I'm going out. Like that's the main thing. Is like I want to have fun. Like I'm gonna have fun, and I want to infuse that in the other person too, so that they're having fun. But absolutely, I want to be able to retain my energy and know like exactly what that means for me and how much I have to give to that bond.
Absolutely, and even in a one date experience that was amazing for someone, I think about like for me, like my body, my mind, my psyche, every bit of me remembers that experience, and then the bar is set a little bit higher and my expectations rise, and that leads to more quality, more beautiful, genuine interactions. Like I just feel like these moments spread and have ripple effects.
Exactly.
For everyone.
That's actually a really, really key thing is that a lot of these interactions, it's like I'm the creativity, I'm restoring the intimacy and the possibility.
Absolutely.
It's like sometimes a lot of the times people would take that energy and then go to their other partners or whatever. And it's like, now that's the standard that they expect. Now, boundaries, what are you talking about? I can have boundaries? And then they go and have boundaries with the people in their life. And it's like, yes, exactly what you said. We're just like spreading that and just letting that go into the environment.
Exactly. Are there any particular communication tools that you talked about or shared or things?
Yes. Probably I would say the thing that had the biggest impact, and this is crack. So, and it can definitely be
prepared.
Used for be prepared, right? This is crack. But it is about the intentional conversations that I have at the very beginning of attraction or even thoughts of attraction is to have the spread conversation. And if you want to know about that, then you can check out our video that really details what we talk about in the spread conversation and what goes into that. But
that sounds really sexy, but
it's very sexy for sure.
What do you mean by spread?
So it is a intentional conversational framework that we have that I know you know this, but we utilize it to basically get all of the stuff that we're thinking about and all the nervousness and things that we don't know that we're bringing into a possible relationship situation. It's like we just get all of that stuff out there at the beginning, right? So it's not taking up space in our mind. It's not making decisions for us that are unaligned with our actual values and what we're actually really trying to create. We just get all that out there, and we're just like, I'm just approaching this with authenticity and vulnerability. Here's all my stuff, no judgment. If whatever you would like to share, no judgment. Let's see where we can match up and see if we want to move forward. And if we can and we want to, then let's do it. And if not, then thank you for taking care of yourself, and we're going to go about our own way. And the level and amount of pressure that took off, and just the actual assumption of rapport that created just in the beginning. We got through all of the bullcrap that you have to deal with,
and the guesswork,
needless guesswork. Like, we're two humans here. Like, let's talk about these things. And that, I think, is the framework and the thing that just set the whole thing off, and it sets the whole basis for the whole thing. And then all of the edge, all of the cringe is automatically taken away.
And I imagine that's, first of all, so surprising and so relaxing once your date realizes, oh, this is the kind of conversation we get to have. I don't have to have guesswork. Also, it makes people think.
It does make people think. And it helps people to have boundaries and just establish those, like, for sure.
Do you want to say quickly what the acronym SPREAD stands for?
So, the S is for, like, sexual safety, right? Let's get everything out on the table right here. Like, I use barriers, whether I don't, I'm on prep or whatever, like, let's just talk about those things. And I think it's really important. Like, it's not to shame anybody or anything like that. It's like, it's just to get so we're all in informed consent. The P is for, like, pronouns, sexuality, any kind of, like, what are you attracted to? Like, kind of, any kind of thing like that. We just kind of talk about those things. Let's get it out in the open. Our relationships and agreements. Like, what kind of relationships are you in? What kind of agreements do you have? Like, let's just talk about those things. E is like emotions, meaning, aftercare, trauma, like those kinds of things. What are you bringing to this possible interaction so that we can just know about it? And so then we get to the A, which is just ask and decide. So the general structures, I would have gone through my SBRE at that time, and then I would ask you to go through your SBRE at that time. So ask and decide. And then, of course, as I was saying, if the decision by either person is a no, then we say, thank you for taking care of yourself, and we move on. But if both people are a yes, then we go into the D, which is desires, fears, and boundaries, and that's where the hot stuff happens. But yeah, let's just talk about those things so that it's not something that's a surprise. It's not something that I'm worried about. Like, should I go for the kiss at the end? Like, I don't know, like, building up all these emotions and all of this, and what does it mean if I don't, and what if I do and she doesn't? It's like, let's just talk about these things.
We stress ourselves out so much with those things.
Needlessly for it. We're just gonna talk about it, and we're gonna get through it.
Yep. Yeah. Here's a framework.
We
promised to talk about a framework.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Lay it out.
Let's just get into it. So, and I do talk about this in one of my other videos, and you can check that out, where I go through the specific components of the different frameworks and what they're used for. But the thing that I want to really talk about here is that, so there are conversational frameworks and like goals that you want to try to hit whenever you're creating connection. But the main thing is it really, and this is the point of all of this, is it just comes down to authenticity, right? It comes down to authenticity and groundedness. And so I'll talk again, like the three things that I feel like really create connection, and these are the frameworks that I utilize. Is it's first, be engaged and interested and engaging, like really be listening to what they're saying and paying attention and finding the things that you're actually interested in and asking questions about those things. The second is to approach that with a sense of groundedness, right? You're not interviewing, you're not just like spewing a bunch of nervous questions at them and waiting for answers. You are being grounded and you're responding appropriately, and then asking a follow-up question based on what was going on and what you heard. And then the third thing is to have something going on and be engaged in your passions so that you can have some rebound. And as you're listening to the responses, you can throw a little bit of yourself in there to bounce off of as you're throwing it back to them. Statements like, oh yes, I've had very similar experiences. What happened for you in this moment? But be interested, because people can feel that, right? If you just have nothing going on and you're just like laser focused on asking them questions so you can get it from them, they can feel that. They can also feel whenever you're so grounded and you're so confident, because you're the one judging you. You're not worried that you're indifferent to outcome. They can feel that too, and they resonate with that confidence, and they're attracted to that. And so whenever you get into that place, you're in a place where you have your needs met. And so you're not in this place of desperation. I feel like that's really huge. Being on a date and being in this place of desperation where you're just constantly talking and you're just constantly like telling the person how much they mean to you and all of that stuff. It's like, nah, man, you want to come from a different place. And whenever I show up, I have my needs met, so I really am indifferent to outcome. Like I don't need to go home and sleep with you. You know what I'm saying? Like I've got that taken care of. Like I'm really just sitting there trying to create connection and to reinforce this bond, I would say. So it all comes down to authenticity. That's really what it is, you know? And that's how we should be showing up in our work, in our life, in our relationships, just in everything. Right? So,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So if any of this makes any sense to you, if you want to know any deeper conversations or anything like this, be sure to leave us a question in the comments and like and subscribe because we got some other videos that are just like this and even cooler and better that you can hopefully take into your life and get some kind of inspiration from.
Absolutely. And tell us what you think. What is your favorite connection story?
Great question. I can't wait to hear from you. So that's what we've got for this video. Thanks a lot. Be sure to like and subscribe and zoom out. And remember, bliss is your birthright.